Well, we're going to go ahead and get started with our last dish for the night. And this one is a particular favorite of mine that I've come across, and it's a lime, Virginia, hold your ears, and cilantro pork taco. Okay, it is really a good recipe to do ahead. I've already browned our pork, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get our eye going really good here. We're going to turn it up on high, and we're going to add a little bit of olive oil to our pan. And then we're going to start our vegetables. How many people have had different sorts of tacos other than like a beef taco? Yeah? Tell me some. Fish. Fish seems to be the in thing right now when it comes to tacos. I hear everybody talking about it. Matter of fact, when we were talking about our recipes tonight, I had someone ask me, were you doing fish tacos? And no, I'm not doing fish tacos. But I could see where it'd be really good, especially using a meaty fish like a swordfish or a halibut or something like that. It's got a good meaty flavor to it. But my opinion is if you're using something to substitute to taste like something else, you might as well use the original, right? Okay. Kind of like Sally in her vegetarian dishes trying to make imitation bacon. Okay, if bacon is so good that you have to make an imitation for it, it can't be bad. Okay, so just go ahead and eat the real thing. That's the way to go. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to heat our skillet up, and we've already browned our pieces of pork. And what I did is I got some pork tenderloin, and I just cut it just as thin as I could cut it, and cut it up in strips. And then I browned it in our skillet, and this is the same skillet that I browned in, and you can see there's some still little brown pieces and stuff in there. I add a little more oil to it and to heat our skillet up. And then what we're going to do is after we've taken that out, we're going to add our onion. And I've sliced this onion thin, okay? I didn't dice it because I don't want to lose the onion in it. And you're just going to caramelize these. So we just sliced them real thin. We're going to add those in. Then we're going to add our jalapeños in, okay? These, again, have been seeded. They've been, membranes have been taken out, and they've been soaked in water. Okay. And we're going to let these saute in our skillet, okay? We're going to mix them up really good. And you're going to let those get good and caramelized. And then after we cook those up for a little bit, and about 3 or 4 minutes, we're going to take and we're going to add back into the pan a little bit of chicken stock, okay? I'm using a low sodium chicken stock tonight. Simple fact that, again, we're trying to, in all this food, we're trying to be a little health conscious, you know, and it proves that you can eat healthy and have a lot of flavor. And so what we're going to do after that is we're going to add our chicken stock in, and we're going to let it simmer for about a minute, and we're going to scrape the bottom of our pan. Now, there wasn't a lot of brown in this pan because we use a real lean pork. And I took all of our pork out, of course, and I've got it in the pan there. If you use a pork that's got just a little bit of fat on it, what will happen is that fat will caramelize and it'll leave the brown goodness in the bottom of your pan. Okay, if you've got that brown goodness in the bottom of your pan, what you want to do is after you've cooked everything up, you want to add your chicken broth, and then you want to scrape the bottom of your pan. And as you scrape the bottom of your pan, that's going to loosen all that up. Any of you that's ever made gravy before knows that's the start of good gravy, okay? I made gravy last night out of a roast that I cooked in the crock pot. I took all the juice out and I made a roux. Again, that is just flour and oil, and mixed it all up. And that's all that is. So what you're doing is you're making a little bit of a sauce. And we're not going to thicken this sauce up a lot because we're not adding all this chicken stock. We're just going to add about 1/2 cup of chicken stock to this recipe. Our onions and our peppers are starting to cook now. We're going to let them cook for just a minute more. You can use chicken with this recipe. You can use beef with this recipe. Yes, you can use fish with this recipe. We'll go back to the fish just for a second. If you use fish in this, you need to use a firm meat fish. Stuff like trout, okay, that comes out of the South Holston Lake or river. Don't use it, okay? It's going to fall apart. If it was, I'd be making fish tacos every day. We've got a freezer full of South Holston River trout that we go fishing for all the time. But you want to use tuna. I love tuna. And the secret to cooking with tuna is, how many people like tuna in the can? Anybody here not like tuna in the can? Thank you. Thank you. Me and you take a lot alike, don't we, sir? I do not, but I love fresh tuna, and I'll tell you why. It tastes like steak. You can take tuna and you can cook it on your grill, and I cook it rare. I just cook to sear the outsides of it, and sometimes add sesame seeds to it as you're cooking it, and gives it a wonderful Asian flavor to it. But you keep it rare, and when you're cooking it in this, the same thing. Cook it in little squares, about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch strips, and cook that with your taco stuff. Anything firm fish like that is really good to use. So always keep it. You could use shrimp, yeah. There's no reason why you couldn't, because shrimp and the onions and the lime juice and stuff would go good together. I hadn't thought about shrimp, but that would be really good. Anybody else? All right. We've got those cooking pretty good right now, so we're going to go ahead and add our chicken stock in. One thing that you want to be sure to do is that when you add your chicken stock in, try to keep it at room temperature, okay? The chicken stock that I'm using today come from a little cardboard container that we sell down here. It's the Food Club brand. It's a low sodium. But the reason you don't want to put it in the refrigerator is as soon as you add this to your pan, it's going to drop the temperature so quickly in your skillet. And you're going to have to wait that much longer for it to come up. So we're going to add about half of that, maybe just a hair more. We're going to go ahead and add a little bit of salt, okay? This is going to help with the process of cooking our onions. And a little bit of pepper, okay? And then we're just going to get that mixed up really good. And we're going to get that going. Well, we've got our eye set on high, so it shouldn't take that long for all that to come back up to temperature. Okay, and then after we've added our chicken stock in, I'm going back to my recipe to make sure I'm going along with it here. We are going to scrape your bottom. And what I'm talking about scraping the bottom is I'll go ahead and show you. We didn't have many little brown bits in the bottom, but you can see here our sauce has already started bubbling, and that's because we did not chill our chicken stock. If you have chicken stock like me that you keep in the freezer, okay, you make your own chicken stock. One of the things that's really neat about that is you can put it in ice cube trays, pop your ice cubes out into baggies, and you've got ready to go chicken stock already made up. If you're using that, let it thaw first, unless you've got the time and you just want to wait and you enjoy waiting. But if you'll let it thaw first, okay, what will happen is it'll come back up to temperature like this has really, really quick. But back to scraping the bottom of it, you just want to go around the edges and you just want to scrape the bottom of any pan that you've got with that, with all that brown goodness on the bottom of it. To me, that is the best part. Like if you're making steak and gravy or something like that, it's the same thing. When you add and you're making your gravy, that's what you're making out of. There's those little bits of I won't say burnt, but those little bits of brown, crispy things that are in the bottom. That's the best part of steak and gravy right there. So we get that going. And we've scraped the bottom of our pan, and we've got everything going really good now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add back into our dish our pork. Okay, I've got a little bit more than a pound here because I knew we was going to have a good crowd tonight. And we're going to add that back in. Okay. You could use, if you're using pork, you could use ground pork. Okay, we sell ground pork in the meat department back there. You could use pork ribs, you know, the boneless country ribs that we sell. You could use those. Generally, what I use when I'm making something with a certain kind of meat, I use, if it's not set, like some things you have to use. If you're making brisket, you have to use like the flank steak or whatever it is that you're going to use. But if I can get by with it, I use the cheapest cut of meat I can find. Okay. And then again, you don't want to use a Boston butt with this because there's so much connective tissue and stuff in that. But you just want to use that, and we're going to stir this up, and we're going to get this really good and warm. Okay. We're going to add our tomatoes in here just a second. I'm going to get a bunch of cilantro out of the refrigerator. We're going to cut it up, and we're going to add just a little bit to it. I had a young lady I was talking to today when we was checking out, said she did not like cilantro either. She said to her it tasted like dishwater. I said, I don't know, because I've never tasted dishwater before, so I don't know. So if you all know what dishwater tastes like, okay. All right. So we're going to add a little bit of cilantro in. We're going to add a little bit of lime juice in. This is just a fresh dish too. Anytime you use lime, anytime you use cilantro, fresh vegetables and stuff like that, and it's a good summertime thing. I mean, this is, you can make it to your liking, but just something refreshing. We went through some limes tonight, haven't we? Anybody here cook with limes? Anybody here ever? What do you use, ma'am? Do what? Key lime pie. Now I said cook with, not no, I'm kidding. I love key lime pie. Key limes are wonderful too. If you can ever find the little tiny key limes, they have so much more flavor than these limes do, but they are very time consuming in using a. I'm afraid I was, but when I was in Miami, I was ready to get out of Miami. So I've been to Florida twice in my life. Once is when we flew into Miami, and once is when we flew out of Miami, and that's the only time I've ever been to Florida in my life. And if that's Florida, I don't really I've not lost nothing in Florida, but a lot of people tell me that is not Florida. So we're going to stir this up really good. Now you could add a lot more heat to this again. If it was me, I would add a little bit more heat. I would add some habanero, some crushed red pepper would be really good. And you ask about the guacamole, you could add you some crushed red pepper into that. If I added crushed red pepper into it though, I would make sure I let it sit overnight, because what's going to happen is that guacamole, the moisture in that's going to help reconstitute those peppers a little bit. So it won't be like you're getting a tough little sinew or something of pepper in that. Okay, so we're going to mix this up really good. All right. Now we're going to add our tomatoes right in at the end. Okay. You can hear the pork and the moisture. Yep, I missed, didn't I? You can hear the pork and the moisture and everything in that bubbling now and getting really good. So we're just going to let that sit for a minute. A few different ways of serving this. One is, like it says on your recipe, to use tortillas. Okay, if you use tortillas, be sure you heat your tortillas first. Okay, for the simple fact that they're easier to work with if they're heated. When they're cold, they're not as pliable. And you can just take the whole pack of tortillas, you can put them on a plate and stick them in your microwave for about 30 seconds, and that's heated enough to make them a little more pliable. You can use, like what we're going to do tonight, we're going to use tortilla chips, okay? You can make a taco salad. If you got lettuce and stuff and you want to make a taco salad, this would make a wonderful taco salad. You could take and use taco shells, hard or soft taco shells, and just use them as a regular taco. There's many ways you can do it. One of the things that'd be really good with this is to add a little bit more sauce into it somehow, maybe a little bit of salsa. Take a little bit of your salsa and add into this and cook it up, okay, and use it as a dip, okay. You could add refried beans to this. You could take refried beans to this, and what I would do if I did that is I'd make sure I put my refried beans in first. I'd put my pork and stuff on top of that and let the refried beans caramelize on the bottom, then mixture it in. And what that would do is that would give you a little more holding together with that. So it'd be something you could do on that. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. You could put cheese, yeah. Cheese would be wonderful. A pepper jack cheese on top of this would be just really, really good. A Monterey Jack, if you don't want the pepper, you could use a Monterey Jack cheese. And on any of this, you could use cheese. On the guacamole, you could use cheese. On the salsa, I wouldn't recommend so much the cheese. A lot of people might. I'm a cheese nut. Okay, if I can find a reason to use cheese, I'm going to find a reason to use cheese. So you can do it that way. So this is ready to go, and it's as simple as that. You can see our onions have cooked down. Okay, our cilantro and our lime juice. We're going to add just at the very end of this, I'm going to add just a touch of cumin, not a lot. And the reason we've talked about in the past, it looks like I'm adding a lot, but it's not coming out. Okay, the reason that we add the cumin and any spice that you use, it doesn't have to be cooked down a lot at the end, is you're not cooking the flavors out. Okay, if I was to add that cumin in when we first started, you would not be able to taste it when you got done. So the flavors are not going to be cooking out of that. All righty. So that's simply, any kind of cheese, Parmesan cheese even. You know, you could use any kind of cheese. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to sprinkle it on top of it. I don't know that I would incorporate it too much. I would sprinkle it on top of it, and that way if somebody, especially if you're serving to a big crowd like what we are here tonight, and that's why I just try to kind of stay with the basics tonight to show you all that it's not really difficult to do. It's not rocket science, as I've said a lot before. It's just cooking what you like to eat. That's basically what it is. Any questions about it? Any questions? All right. Anybody want to try it? Everybody ready to try it? All right. We will get started with that. I'm going to let that sit here, and Jessica's going to come, and you're going to help me get the stuff? Okay, Jessica's going to come and help me get the stuff and take it back. I didn't see her back there for a second. I thought she had disappeared on me. And I'm going to throw the garlic across the room there.